Hi there. So we are joined today with Benn Cass, who is the owner of Pitchside Football. I'm going to ask Ben to introduce himself and tell us about his company and what he does.
Yeah, so obviously, thanks for having me. So, yeah, I'm Ben. I look after a company called Pitchside Football. I started in football many, many years ago. So, probably over 20 years ago, I started with one of our local football leagues and started as their IT officer because back 20 years ago, I was probably the only one that could use a computer. So ended up taking hold of the website and fixtures and things like that, and then obviously held numerous positions up until I became chair probably about 10 years ago. But I've worked through many changes of provision with football in terms of formats, from when we went from the 11-a-side to 9-a-side, and basically provide lots of opportunities for players. And then in terms of just kind of on Pitchside Football, we do offer alternative provisions. So the vast majority of the things that we do are different to the mainstream football. So we provide 3v3 football, we provide beach soccer football, we provide opportunities to play at stadiums. And this particular year, we're going to start our 5-3-1 provision, which allows you to try different formats within a tournament setting as well.
Fantastic. So we're here really today to discuss there's more changes on the way regarding youth football and squad sizes. So really, I know you're very well versed in this, given that you're quite involved in 3v3 football as well. So can you just give us a kind of a quick overview for those that don't know of the changes to squad sizes? And then really we can discuss what this is going to mean for youth football.
Yeah, absolutely. So big disclaimer first is that the exact changes are still unknown. So we don't fully know what those changes are going to be. It is likely going to be changes to smaller formats in the lower age groups and potentially cascading that through into the older age groups. So probably not playing 11-side football till a few more years down the line. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of what we're projecting to happen. It's kind of what the pilots are suggesting. It's kind of suggesting where the Europeans have been going in that kind of sense. So we kind of anticipate that that's what's going to happen. One of the big things to obviously note as well is these changes won't happen till 26, 27. So there's plenty of time to adapt to what's actually changing. And no team will be forced to go down a particular format size. So if you are playing 5-a-side now, you're not suddenly going to turn around and go play 3v3 the year after. It's always going to be that cascading approach. So there's absolutely plenty of time to understand those changes and make any kind of implementation within the club that might be needed as well.
Yeah, that's interesting that you've said that, because I've been looking at some of the forums where there's a lot of noise about these changes. And I think actually from a reading between the lines of a parent's concern, it was that their kids are playing 7v7 and suddenly they're going to have to go down to something else. So that's good. It's good to know that actually this will be very much for probably newer players coming into the system. Is
Absolutely.
that how we see this?
Absolutely. It's going to be the newer teams. I mean, everybody's going to, it's going to be a cascading approach. So it may be that if you're playing 9-a-side under 12s, in that particular season, it might be that next year you carry on playing 9-a-side under 13s. So you will never go down the size. You may stay at the same one. But again, it's all still up in the air. Mm-hmm. Anticipation is obviously later this month or early next month, and we'll find out exactly what those changes might be.
And this is something that you say has been kind of rolled out in Europe already. This is a kind of we're watching.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of how that works, is so this is probably one of the best pieces of things of kind of research that the FA have done. So the FA have been across the European countries. They've actually spoke to other people. They haven't just put out the air and gone, oh yes, we need to change to 3v3. We need to change to 4v4. It might be 4v4. So although we're talking 3v3, it could be 4v4. It might not change. It might still be 5v5. But it's that kind of approach that we're kind of letting the experts deal with this, and they're making those changes. Nobody likes change. We didn't like the change when we introduced 9v9 10 years ago or so, but we've now embraced it. You know, you wouldn't ever go back and say, you know, can we make a 10-year-old kid play 11-a-side football? We wouldn't do that now. But that's what it was back in sort of 2010. So yeah, lots of evidence to suggest change is needed. So it'll be a case of trying to embrace it and see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you've been a really strong advocate for these changes, and we've talked about it ourselves. And so, what do you see the biggest benefits are going to be for young players with the potential changes that are coming in?
Yeah, so making smaller formats allows more opportunities for individual players. Now, if we take the team concept out of it and look at an individual player, if we play a five-a-side game or a seven-a-side game, you may have five or 75% of your team is really strong, or what you feel are really strong players. You may have that kind of 25% that may just still be developing, maybe kind of getting up to that mark. What you can do with 3v3 or 4v4, smaller formats, if we kind of call it that, it allows players to have more touches of the ball. The only way a player is going to improve is by having touches of the ball. If you just throw them on to make up numbers and keep swapping and changing them to just give them a couple of minutes, they're never ever going to improve. So by creating the smaller formats, it makes more technical players, because those players have to use the ball. There's less players to work with. You've got to play with everybody. And also it increases opportunity to score a goal. I mean, what 7, 8-year-old kid, boy, girl doesn't want to score a goal? Whether you're playing in defence, a goalkeeper, wherever it may be, you always want to score a goal. It, obviously, that progression is through into the larger format. So as you go into sort of the five-a-side game, the seven-a-side game, they would already kind of owned in on those kind of technical skills that you want them to do. So they're able to pass a ball. So you're not having that defender, that's kind of old school defender where you're asking them to just boot the ball out, make sure it don't get past you, boot it out. Well, now that defender, because they've had a couple of years of playing with them at their feet, they might now turn around and go, oh, look, I might be able to dribble with this, and I might be able to make a goal scoring opportunity. So lots of opportunities by using a smaller format at the younger age group.
Yeah. Playing devil's advocate somewhat, so critics are kind of arguing that these changes are going to mean less opportunities. We hear about coaches where they really try and just take the best of the bunch. Now, surely would that not then take that pool down a little bit further and leave some kids with less opportunities to play?
No, so I think this kind of aligns into what does that mean for teams in terms of their squad sizes. Well, ultimately, nothing changes. So the misconception at the moment is, oh, we're going to 3v3, so we're going to need more coaches, we're going to need more pitches, we're going to need it means less players in a squad and things like that. And the squad is probably the key word there. So nothing changes. So if you've got a squad, so take an under 17 now, if you've got a squad of 8 to 10 players, when the format changes go to 3v3, 4v4, that squad will still be a squad of 8 or 10 players. Nothing changes. You don't need more coaches. You don't need more volunteers. Everything stays the same. The only thing that would change is on the match day, instead of playing 5v5, you will split your squad into 2 groups of 4, and they will play a round robin against another team who will have split their team into a group of 4. So there's no difference to training. I mean, who would want to go to a training session with 4 players? It would be ridiculous. It just wouldn't happen. So you've still got to have your squad of 8 to 10, and all that means is that you can nurture and you can kind of upskill those players as a group, but in a smaller format. So when you do go to 5-a-side and 7-a-side, you're not then trying to find more players to join your team or anything like that. You've already got your 10 players, and you've probably nurtured them by making them more skillful. And if we talk about the pitch issue, where people say, "Oh, the lack of we're going to have hundreds of pitches." Well, again, there's no difference. All we're doing is playing 3v3 across a 5-a-side pitch. So the 5-a-side pitch is already there. There's no markings as such. You're just using across the pitch. We don't know what the goals are going to be. The anticipation is that you'll use whatever goal you want. If you want to use a pop-up goal, you can do. If you want to put cones, you can put cones. But there's no major difference, and I think that's the biggest misconception that everybody's having at the moment. Is there's lots and lots of things happening, but in reality, the only thing is changing is that you are playing 3v3 on a match day as opposed to 5v5. Everything else stays the same.
Yeah. Oh, that's great that you've actually said that, because actually that was another good question of mine about the pitches and the lack of infrastructure. But I think actually that's actually just a conversation for another day, with a general problem that we see in the UK with waterlogged pitches, not enough pitches. Astros are at an absolute premium. So I think, that is just a nationwide thing that probably takes more than just a conversation with us that needs to be tackled. So, but interestingly, it was the point about goalkeepers as well. So there's potentially no goalkeepers. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, again, there's uncertainty around the impact on goalkeepers. I don't particularly know that that area that well. If we're using the kind of traditional sense of 3v3, there wouldn't be goalkeepers because we're using smaller goals. But that also then adds a challenge as well, because then for your individual team, I certainly see it at the younger age groups. It's very, very few players turn around and say, I want to be the goalkeeper. You often get loads of posts on forums saying, we need a goalkeeper, we need to do this, we'll rotate you round and we'll have 3 goalkeepers and they all to rotate. So it's very, very, very rare that you get somebody that wants to do it. Absolutely, you still will. So I will put that caveat in there. You will still get those players that just want to be a goalkeeper. But what this will enable them to do is, again, challenge themselves to be more skillful as a goalkeeper. So instead of just getting the ball in their hands and then the coach telling them to just pump it down the pitch, now all of a sudden they might be able to play with it at their feet because they've had a couple of years of actually honing their skill in on their footwork. So now suddenly we've got a technical goalkeeper that can now do, okay, they might still pump it down the pitch, but they can actually go, oh, well, can we pass it to our wing backs? Can we dribble a bit? Can we use that goalkeeper as another player when we're actually playing out? So it might be it goes to the defenders. The defenders are quite happy to pass it back to the goalkeeper. This then helps the defenders. So instead of the defender just going, right, I need to boot it out to try and stop somebody coming through, we can now turn around and say, well, actually, can I pass to the goalkeeper because I know they've got their skills at their feet. They might be able to do something with it and move it along. So it provides opportunities. It might be barriers as well from goalkeepers. It's an unknown one for me. I don't particularly know what would happen in that instance.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And I see it from like a parent's perspective, from like inclusivity and sort of holding players in teams. I've been kind of what my kids have been in teams and seen that you have a core of players and then there's the few that I even hate to say it out loud, but like the fringe players, and they're the ones that actually get quite unhappy, and they're the ones that don't not even stay within the team, but stay within the game, which is a really sad state of affairs. So if I was trying to see a positive out of this, where every player feels valued and included as part of the team, then I think that's a real positive if this is the way it's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And that emphasis on the squad is exactly that. So one week when you split your team, you might have a red team and a blue team. And this week you might put your 4 more stronger players together and you might put your 4 less able or more developing players together. But then as they kind of work together, it maybe the week after you might go, okay, we might split them up again and they go a different route. So all of a sudden you haven't got that emphasis of I've got my 7 or 8 players and I have to play all my 7 or 8 players in that one particular team. You've now got the emphasis of being able to mix and match them to enable them to develop at their own rate so that when they do become into that team, you've suddenly got a stronger team together. So there's some pros and cons. Obviously, the con is that people don't like the idea of going to a different format, but we've been through this before. We've been through this when we went to 9v9. Things change. We change for them for a reason. And like I say, the evidence is there to suggest the smaller format is a better format of the game for the younger age group. Obviously, the jury's out, so we'll see exactly what the proof will be in the pudding.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the most recent change was the dribble-ins rather than throw-ins and the headings, and that caused quite a lot of noise, didn't it, initially? Yeah. And then it just becomes accepted that that's the law and that's what we do. So, so clubs, teams, coaches that like. Obviously there's a lot of noise, everybody's talking about it, and I know that this isn't imminent, but it's something that's happening. How do people start thinking about this? How do we talk about implementing it and looking at sort of when we do choosing squads and things? What's the advice you could give us there?
So I think the advice is to carry on as you are. There's no significant change to what's happening there. There's probably no need for any concerns. Like I say, the similarity to this sort of 10 years ago or so is the same. We didn't want to make that change, but it happened. You touched on it there about the kick-ins and the kind of dribble-ins and the no heading. Yes, it's changed and people are just accepting of it now. So yes, there's noise to begin with. It all calms down and we get on with it. But squad sizes are likely to remain the same. So only match day formats would change. It will take time to adapt and things like that. And like I said, ultimately, we don't 100% know what those changes are going to be. They're not going to change imminently. They're going to change 26, 27. We're only in 2025. We've got another year and a half, another 18 months before these changes happen. the FA will put out loads of information around it to try and support everybody in those transitions. But I think the biggest thing is trying to alleviate some of that misconception around more play. You're going to need more coaches, you're going to need more pitches and everything else. But ultimately, the impact is probably going to be minimal.
Yeah. So recapping, really, the concerns that we see, the noise that we're hearing is we're going to need more coaches. That's not the case. The infrastructure with regards to pitches, that's not going to be an issue because you've discussed how and why, and that's a wider problem anyway in the UK. And the long-term development of players, this should be a positive step for them in terms of we're creating more skillful players who are getting more opportunity to play the game. That's how we see this. Yeah. Well, I was about to say, like, any advice to players, well, not really players because they're quite young and they won't really have any concerns about what's going on, but really for coaches and parents who are concerned what these changes are going to mean for them. I suppose the advice is not to worry, but I'll let you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the advice is to not to worry. We don't know what the changes are. Everything is speculation at the moment. Wait and see what the changes are. Wait and see what the guidance is. Like I say, we don't know if it's going to be 3v3. We don't know whether it's going to be 4v4. We don't know whether there's going to be goalkeepers. We don't really know. We know there's a load of pilots on the go. Lots of different counties are doing different things at the moment to try and help with those pilots. But I think for now, don't speculate. Just wait and see what happens. But it will be for the better.
And I guess then, really, people want a head start and they want to go and find out what 3v3 is actually like. And you say you run tournaments for 3v3, is that correct?
Yeah, so we run 3v3 tournaments. Like I said, we're bringing in our 5-3-1 tournaments this year, which really does give all three formats of the game a highlight. So you can play your 5v5 games, your 3v3 games, and your 1v1 duels to give players all different opportunities of that format. But 3v3, if you really want to get ahead of the game, the FA have got loads and loads of things out there around 3v3. We certainly run lots of tournaments around 3v3 and our club nights as well. We certainly see from our own club nights, we see the benefits. So give it a go. Try it in your training sessions. You don't need to specifically do it. Find another team. Give it a go between the two of you. Play a little round robin. See what happens. See what differences the players may have. Different opportunities. See who scores. We make it a very key target that everybody that plays for U3 should be scoring a goal, and pretty much everybody has. So at least everybody goes home scoring a goal, having plenty of game time, and have plenty of touch of the ball.
And in your tournaments, are these open to all ages?
Yes, so we do a wide range of ages. So we do from our under 7s, usually up to under 12s, but we can obviously go higher as well, depending on demand.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today. And I know, obviously, these things are evolving quickly, and that whatever we've said today is subject to change. But I just think it's really, really good just to clarify what we know at the moment, and let the audience know, just because rumors go out and then noise, things spread, and it's not always as terrifying as it might sound when you first hear of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben.